Council President, it looks like everyone's here and we are ready in chambers.
All right, great. Well, let's start the meeting. Welcome everyone to the Public Infrastructure and Environmental Sustainability Committee of the Spokane City Council for November 22nd. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from last month?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving last month's minutes indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? All right, the minutes are approved. I've got a couple of folks who are going to present to us today. I think first up was going to be Todd Coleman, but I don't see him on yet, unless I'm missing something. But I see Brandon Rapaz-Betty from Spokane Transit Association. So Brandon, maybe we'll go to you for an update on STA fare policy.
I'll go ahead and share my screen. So give me a quick second here while I get this set up.
All right, we can see your screen.
Well, thank you all very much for the opportunity to share this public outreach material with you. Spokane Transit, a few years ago, invested in the opportunity to have a more modern fare collection system, and today's presentation is about the policy that will inform how that tool is used. The main idea behind the policy update is to create more access and better value for transit customers within the public transportation benefit area. So today we're going to talk about that policy and explain some of the ideas behind it. So modern fares for a modern transit system. One of the things that we've heard from customers is that they would like it easier to pay their fares. Right now, for people who use an STA smart card, if they would like to load cash value onto that, they physically have to go to the STA plaza. And we are in a digital world, and people should have the opportunity to log into their accounts from wherever they are and manage that, manage the amount of money they're spending on whatever that service is, whether that's a transportation service like Uber or Lyft, or if that is something e-commerce, Etsy, whatever the case may be. They just want the ability to be online. We also learned that people want contactless fare payment system. The pandemic really illustrated the benefit of contactless payment system. So not only is it a quick way to pay for things, it's also a sanitary way to pay for things. So those are really kind of the two key components of the foundation of what we're doing is a contactless fare media that you can use to board the bus quickly, as well as manage your accounts from online. And so why the change? We've kind of talked about that. It's easier, it's more convenient, it's more accessible, and it creates faster boarding times as fewer customers are paying with cash. KHQ ran a story that was had a major factual error in it. It had suggested that we were eliminating cash payments. That is absolutely not the case. Cash will still be accepted on board the buses, but there is an effort to reduce the amount of cash because, as we'll discuss in a little bit later on, cash can sometimes slow things down, causing problems. But most importantly, this is about maximizing customer value, making sure people are paying the right fares, address fare inequities, so looking at some of those in our community who either struggle to pay for transportation or who aren't able to, reduce financial barriers, and increase access to public transit. So our new policy, two parts to the policy. One part is the well-defined policy, and the other part is the technology. So the technology is the tool, and as I mentioned before, the policy is what informs it. So we're really focused on the policy and not the tool itself. So there's no instructions on how to actually do any of this. We're just talking about it conceptually. The timeline is that the board of directors will hear the issue in January. So now is our public outreach period. We're trying to educate about the policy and get feedback. The policy won't actually take effect until later in 2022, probably October 1st. We'll probably have some kind of beta group to start us out before we phase into a full-on new approach. So gathering public input, and when I mentioned that there's not going to be any instructions today on how to actually use the new tool, we will have a lot of that in 2022. We'll be doing outreach, lots of digital videos that explain people how to use their account, where they can go to load cash, and some of the other benefits. But as we have a discussion about a fair policy, it begs the question, why are there fairs at all? And STA's fair philosophy has been very similar, has been the same for a very long time. And that's that fairs equal revenue for the service. Traditionally, fairs pay about 20% of the cost to provide public transit. That number has been lower in the last few years, and particularly there was a steep decline in fare revenue in 2020 when we went fare-free for a few months while we were loading passengers from the rear door until we could put the barriers to protect coach operators while they were at work onto the buses. But the long-term discussion about fares is that without that annual revenue coming in from passenger fares, there could be less service. We are not in that position at all right now, particularly with the revenue from the federal government for the pandemic relief. There's not a revenue issue, but the philosophy sustains. So STA recognizes that paying transit fare can be a challenge for some customers. But because there is a revenue component to our service model, we aim to balance the use of revenue with the financial needs of customers, and that's the outcome of this is a better policy. The policy is good for the customer experience for three reasons. First, it enables fare capping, which is a new trend in the transit industry to address fare equities. It contains more discount options, so kind of hearing the call that there needs to be more further reductions in financial barriers, and that there are more places where people can access transit resources by converting their cash to their smart card or their mobile device, smartphone. So to help explain what fare capping is, we'll talk about it some more, but we've boiled it down into this quick 1-minute video.
Have you ever purchased a 31-day bus pass just to only use it a handful of times? Have you ever ridden the bus a few times in one day and thought it would have been cheaper just to buy an all-day pass? STA is changing the way we collect fares. We're considering rolling out fare capping so you can get the best value for how you ride. What is fare capping? Fare capping rewards passengers with unlimited rides for a day or a month after you've spent the same amount as a day pass or a month pass. An adult 31-day pass costs $60. If you ride less than 30 times with that pass, you've overpaid. With fare capping, you no longer have to shell out $60 upfront for the month. You just use an STA Smart Card and pay $2 each time you ride the bus. Once you've spent $60, you get unlimited rides for the rest of the month. This is a guarantee that you will never spend money on rides you don't take. It works the same way for a single day, too. Use your STA Smart Card to pay $2 for your first ride and $2 for your second ride, then ride for free for the rest of the day. Do you want to ride STA and pay as you go, with each ride bringing you closer to getting unlimited rides for the rest of the month? Would this save you money? Should STA implement fare capping? Let us know by taking our survey.
So the fare capping survey is out and it is live. To date, we've had about 750 respond to that, but we have well over a month left in this period, so there will be plenty of opportunities for people to take the survey. We do encourage anyone who would like to have a presentation reach out to STA. We'd be gladly to do that in person or virtually, however is best. So fare capping rewards passengers with unlimited rides for a day or a month after they spent the same amount as a day pass or a month pass. So if I ride $2 in the morning and $2 in the middle of the day, that the rest of the rides that day are free. The same concept goes for the month, and that does run for a calendar month. The pay-as-you-go model removes that large upfront cost, so whether you're qualified for reduced fare at a $30 for the monthly pass or at $60 at the standard fare, that is just a chunk of money that is difficult for some people to come up with all at once for their transportation needs for the month. So fare capping reduces that burden, Nobody has to figure out which pass they should get because you're just deducting that $2 or $1 from your account each time you ride the bus, and the system, your account online, keeps track for you. And that way, no one overpays. So you think about the commuter who maybe buys the monthly pass but only rides 15 or 20 times. You know, that's there's trips that they didn't take that would have maximized their value. But we've also heard the call to have more discount options available. The STA board just last month approved the Community Action Pass program, which provides 50% off passes to qualified nonprofit organizations who serve our most vulnerable in the community, as long as those passes are given to the clients for free. So we were able to double the number of passes in the last year to those kinds of organizations. But these are new proposals. There is the honored rider, which is similar to our previous reduced fare policy, except that we've reduced the age to qualify for it from 65 down to 60, which creates thousands of more beneficiaries in the PTBA. We're also proposing a Stars and Stripes discount. So this would be for active duty military or veterans who live in our community to be able to ride at 50%. There is a rider in training proposal. I'll talk about that in just a minute. Also a rider's license and a student pass. So I've already covered the honored rider. That's for people 16 and over or who have individuals with disabilities. So an improvement to this program, the addition of the Stars and Stripes. So the Rider in Training is a fun new program that we hope to roll out for kids who are 6 to 12. Previously, kids above 6 years old had to have a fare, so a $2 ride because there is no youth there in the current model, there is no youth fare. It is just a standard $2 fare. So this age group was paying before. And now what we're saying is let's have free rides up to the age of 12. They still have to get their STA pass so that they have a fare media when they hop on the bus, but once they do that, it's free. This expands the age range from the previous 6 years old. We also want the rider's license. The Rider in Training program gives us an opportunity to communicate to that age group about the benefits of using transit and how to use it safely. And then the rider's licenses, they've kind of developed their skill for riding transit. They're in a different age group. So there is an introduction of fares at this age, but it's at the reduced fare of $1. So this is a deeper discount than what exists today. It would be $10 cheaper for the monthly fare for this age group. Then there's a student pass, and we've kind of broadened our view of this. Before, an educational institution had to be enrolled, registered with STA, and then those students could benefit for it. What we found is that was an administrative burden for those organizations, and so they weren't making the benefit available. So now it's anybody who is enrolled in any of those programs just needs to provide that documentation that, you know, it could be a week-long training course for one skill or a day-long course for something else, or it could be enrolled in one of the local schools like Carrington College. But no matter what, you'll get that discount, and that would be, it's 20% off the standard monthly fare of $60. So the benefits for this, most customers would be able to manage their fares from home by adding funds to an STA online account with their debit or credit card. But not everybody uses a debit or credit card. We do have unbanked customers, and we also have cash preferred customers. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping their opportunities to use their fare media of choice. The reason we want to reduce the number of people paying with cash on the bus is because we're a growing city, and we have this new growing city problem where when lots of people line up in an individual line at the front of the bus to pay with, you know, their $1 or $2 or their coins, that takes longer, and that amount of time adds up, and then we start to see delays. And delays mean that people are missing important connections to get to their jobs. So if they're connecting at the plaza to get somewhere else. But we're also seeing that it means more cars backing up behind the bus, and we know that that's a frustration to motorists. So the best way we can keep the system moving on time and benefiting everybody is to help reduce the amount of cash that's taken on board. So if people really want to keep paying cash, they're able to do that on board. So that's a given. But for those people who want to benefit from fare capping, then they can take their cash to one of the locations around Spokane. And right now, we're fairly limited. But under the new proposal, we would move to basically it's a gift card, credit card network company called Income that has relationships at lots of retailers in the region. I'll show you the map here in just a minute. But that would make it available so that somebody who could just walk in with their cash, and then the clerk would put that value towards the card. That's a huge benefit compared to right now where you have to go to the STA Plaza to do the same thing. So here's the map of that proposed retail network. And part of our outreach is looking at where are there kind of deserts of these retail locations where people could go to get that. And then we're going to try to work with those retailers to get them on board. There's a public benefit to those retailers doing that. So we're looking at all of the different ways that we can to incentivize them. But this is the opportunity for feedback. We want people to go to the website and take the survey. For people who aren't getting the benefit of an in-person presentation, there is a storyboard. We learned from the city that their outreach process is really well. We've adopted that. So the storyboard with a link to the survey is available. It kind of walks through a lot of these same ideas, probably a little more precisely than myself. So some of the questions are, should STA implement fare capping? Is STA responding appropriately with the implementation of discount programs? And, is having faster boarding times a goal that STA should have? So we'll look forward to people's feedback there. I did just want to take one note before I wrap up, and that's to acknowledge that a couple of our board members, Council Member Lori Kinnear particularly, voiced the desire for free fares for students 18 and under. And so we are taking a look at that as a part of a separate planning process. We're looking at the resources that are available to STA from the federal relief funding and how to implement that in a new strategic plan, but also in some near-term benefits. And so we have added into that process a look at evaluating the cost of that free transit program. And so we'll be working through that to make sure. But I wanted to make sure you all had that feedback so that it didn't seem like I had overlooked that for this presentation. But with that, I would ask if there are any questions.
Any questions for Brandon?
Council President Betsy here.
Yes.
So Brandon, thank you. So talk to me a little bit more about your community outreach. And I ask that because I have several residents that receive the survey through the mail, and some of them that are challenged with special needs are not going to be able to complete that. And so then I'm curious as to how you will really get good feedback from the population you're trying to help the most.
Absolutely. So we did send out a survey to everybody who is a registered reduced fare customer because we want to make sure that we are getting the survey out to as many people as possible. We're promoting it through all of our social media channels, through our website. We're also posting it in different locations at our transit facilities, the STA Plaza. But we are also using our community contacts, and presentations just like these are intended to help bring to us the locations where we haven't thought to go yet. So we have a long list of community organizations, about 60 of them, who we sent the information out to. And these are contacts that we have through the Community Access Pass program, as well as just regular standing relationships that we have with other organizations. So we've offered to give an in-person presentation or to answer questions for absolutely anybody. So it is a pretty extensive outreach effort. And we hope that in the end that whether it's the anecdotal or in-person qualitative information that we get, or if it's from the actual survey, we'll be considering all of that as we send a final recommendation to the board.
Any other questions or comments? All right.
Just one more,
Yes.
Brandon. So
Yeah.
in the special populations that's most challenged by the fare, right, the bus, even though it's reduced, any conversations around what that might look like in the future for that particular population?
So if that population is served by one of the 501c3 nonprofits that intend to serve quality of life issues, and people with disabilities is one of those populations, they can actually receive free passes from those organizations because they've qualified to buy those passes at 50% as long as they're giving those passes away free to their clients. If they're not a client, then they were already available for the reduced fare program under STA, which is 50% off. And this that would remain the same under this fare proposal, that they'd still have that 50% off. If they did, or a guardian who, if they were unable to make those decisions for themselves, a guardian who can help them make those decisions, helps them set up their account. Customer service is happy to help anybody to get their account set up. then they'd be able to benefit from fare capping, which would make sure that instead of just buying the monthly pass to take 4 or 5 medical trips a month, that they would actually benefit from fare capping, and those rides would only be either at the $2 or $1 rate, depending on what program they were signed up for.
Great. Thank you, Brandon. Look
All right,
forward
thank you
to
very much.
some implementation. Thanks. Next, I wanted to go to the Beacon Hill development potential extension. We deferred that from our last council meeting to this committee meeting, and then it's on tonight's agenda. And we had, I think council members had various questions about what was the mechanism to make sure that they built to current public street standards, and also whether or not it could be an extension reduced from not for 5 years, but for something less than that. And then I know Councilmember Kinnear circulated some information today about potentially setting aside land for a park and ride for 50 vehicles. And I think I saw James Richmond, so maybe I'll turn it over to you, James, for a moment just to update council on when you talked to the developer about amending the extension agreement, what the response was, and then between you and Councilmember Kinnear, I'm not sure the status on that latest proposal.
Yes, I shared a copy of the draft with the developer's legal counsel this morning. I understand that he forwarded it to his client almost immediately, and that he and Eldon Brown discussed it, and he indicated he was fine with the amendment that was circulated. I also forwarded them word of Lori's idea, and I haven't heard back on that yet.
Okay. Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, thank you. I'll say I reached out to the developer this morning to share with them the idea of the park and ride, because I wanted some feedback on how that would affect them. And so they have been looking, both the previous developer and the current developer have been looking at trying to do a park and ride, I think further up Beacon. And it would be, the idea would be that it would be on a Vista property. It's still a Vista property today. It's not property that they currently own, but they've been in talks with a Vista about acquiring that land for the purpose of the park and ride. And they've been in conversation with STA to try and facilitate that. STA's position has been, at least in those initial conversations, that, you know, until development is built out, it's just not something that they're going to pursue. And they don't feel that they're ready to actually build a park and ride yet, which is why they haven't acquired that land. So to take several acres out of the 22 acres Vista plat would pretty much decimate the project. And so if we were going to require that the Vista plat specifically have a park and ride, the only place it could go is the current site of multifamily. And so the multifamily would go away, and which would sort of defeat the whole purpose of the park and ride. But that's how they would have to do it on the Vistas plat. So they don't see how it could work out, and they have a longer term vision for a park and ride, but just not as part of the Vistas plat.
Thanks for that update. Councilmember Kinnear.
I understand that I was last minute with this because I've been turning this over in my head for a number of days. It just doesn't work for me that we're going to put multifamily on the border of our city, a mile from the bus stop. Chances are a lot of those folks are going to be low income, moderate income people that will require bus service. We're forcing them essentially to buy a car or have a car. It also is disturbing that we have 1 or 2 council members that are in conversations with the developers, and I don't like to do business that way. I would like to go through our attorney, who's James Richmond, and hear it from him rather than have these side conversations with the developer. If they set aside land, we're not talking about building a park and ride right now. We're talking about planning for the future. And I think that is where maybe people are confused. this should not be part of the construction right now, but it would be something that they set aside so that when it's built out, they have the option to put in a park and ride. They have the option to offer, STA then has the option to build something and offer people transit service. So I would like to hear from James when we get a response back, and then we can go from there.
All right. I saw Councilmember Mumm and then Councilmember Cathcart.
I kind of like what Councilmember Kinnear said, because we have been, as a council, put in a very awkward position. This property changed hands over a year ago, and we're talking about taking a preliminary plat and just finalizing the lines to subdivide it into a final plat. So for the process of an entire year, they have not been able to get the drawings finished. And then here at the 11th hour, council members are put in the position of having to sort of become de facto hearing examiners, trying to put the pieces together to make this work. So we're kind of up against a wall. Where this should have probably gone is back to our hearing examiner, Brian McGinn, who is our advisor on these things, and we should have had a public process for renewing a development agreement, because this development agreement was not done behind closed doors. It was done in a public manner with all the agencies, including STA and the schools and the neighborhoods, there to discuss just these issues. So I think the council's done a great job trying to remediate this in order to save this project, but ultimately it's really not our fault that we're here up against the last minute. This is a choice the developer made. The developer knew what the situation was when they purchased it over a year ago, and then here we are faced with having to extend yet again a development agreement. And I appreciate those who have worked on it and tried to make this come forward, but ultimately I think the best thing is for this to go back to the hearing examiner. If I don't even know how we can preserve this as a development agreement. I mean, they can develop homes there right now. They can come in and change it and put in a final drawing, which, you know, they can even include the multifamily up until when this expires in December. So I appreciate everyone's work on this, but I kind of think we shouldn't be doing this. It's really not on us to try to fix a plat, and we should have let staff do it and have a public process. So that's where I sit. Thank you for listening.
Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, well, they've been trying to get this extension done for a year, and they've been unsuccessful in getting it through whatever the holdups have been behind the scenes. There have been numerous holdups, and I've got emails that show they've been trying to communicate and get this extension from September of 2020. So it's not like they chose to wait. I think we, as a city, put them in the position of making this at the last second. And furthermore, I think there's no problems. They're ready to go. We just need to extend it, and we'll get housing. It's a real simple formula. And so I don't think that there's a problem that we have to try to rectify or facilitate or fix or anything else. Just get out of their way and let them get some housing built to serve the community. That's all.
I just would like to clarify something. The final plat is on them to finish, not us. And if they've had it since September of 2020, it's not necessarily the extension that they should be looking to. They should finish their plat, like all the other people who apply for plats, and get it done within the period of time that the rest of the people. Why this one is different, hard for me to explain, but I don't believe the council's standing in the way of housing here. They need to get it done by the deadline, and they aren't able to do it, and that's unfortunate.
Councilmember Wilkerson.
Thank you. So when I voted for the extension, my question was, when this was originally approved back in 2005, I want the analysis of what design standards had changed since the original approval to what's today. And that was my question. I had some answers about streets will be city-owned versus privately owned. That's all I heard that was different. Was there something else, or are we in alignment with design standards currently from previously?
Jim Richmond here. If you don't mind, I'll jump in before Eldon does. He probably has better information than I do. But the hearing examiner's decision gives them the option of doing either public or private streets within the development. And since the questions were raised at the last meeting, the developer has indicated their willingness and I think their desire for all the streets in the project to be public, probably partly because they may be able to get some reimbursement from the TIF if the streets are public instead of private. And probably the most significant thing that has changed since this plat was approved in 2005 was in 2005, a PUD, if you were in single-family zoning, you were allowed to have apartments within the PUD with a PUD. Our current code does not allow that. Our current code says if you're in single-family zoning, you can't have apartment buildings in the plat. We do have a provision in the code that says if your PUD consists of a combination of zoning, like if part of your plat is single-family, part of it's commercial, part of it's multifamily, those uses can be shifted around within the boundaries of the plat. You're not necessarily bound or stuck with the boundaries of that zoning within your PUD. That's something that can be approved by the hearing examiner in the PUD process. And I would point out that the developer that owns this preliminary plat now owns other land in close proximity to this preliminary plat that is already zoned multifamily. So if this development agreement expires and the approval from 2005 expires, the multifamily that was permitted in the PUD will expire, and they'll be back to single-family residential if they redevelop this site. But if they combine some of the other property in the surrounding area with a new PUD, there's a chance that they could get some more multifamily as part of that project. But if this plat expires, the multifamily goes away, and that's probably the most significant change, I think, since 2005 under our standards, if you will.
And this is Eldon Brown. I'll jump in here too, James. As far as the standards between private and public roads, back in 2005, we really didn't have much of a private road standard. It just had to meet fire department standards and be a minimum of 20 feet wide. And they usually put a couple inches of asphalt down. We really didn't have any directive on that either at that time. And then in 2007, the city came along and we updated our design standards to make private roads equivalent to public roads. And as part of that, then we have minimum right-of-ways. Typically, you have a 60-foot wide right-of-way for a local access street. On a hillside standard, which we're kind of referring this to, it's a minimum of 40 feet wide. And in that, you can put parking on one side of the street, still meet your 20-foot wide fire department requirement. And then we can also then put curbs, sidewalks, things of that nature, trees in that right-of-way. And if we want to put them on both sides of the road, well, you can put sidewalks in an easement on the second side of the road to preserve the 40-foot wide right-of-way. But that's kind of the difference we're into today between what we're dealing with on today's present standard versus back in 2005. So, and we also have a minimum of 3 inches of asphalt, over 4 inches of crushed rock, just standards that were not in place back in 2005 when this was approved. But I'd be happy to answer any other questions on that too.
Just to clarify for, I'll get to you, Councilman Kemp. So besides those road standards and whether or not multifamily can be in a single-family zoned area, are there any other differences that they would have to adhere to today that you're aware of if this expired and they reapplied and went through that process?
What they're really doing was also putting private sewer and water in those private streets way back when. And since everything now is being built to a public standard, all the utilities will also be public and will be built to public standards. So I did want to throw that out there too.
All right, Councilmember Cathcart, and then Councilmember Mung.
Yeah, Eldon, you mentioned the differences in the standards from 2005 to today. And so I guess just in terms of the question that keeps coming up, is the plan that they will build to the new standard then? They'll meet that same road width requirements, they'll meet all the things that you just laid out? Is that what you're hearing from the developer?
Yes, they showed us some plans where they're typically looking at a 27-foot wide road in these 40-foot right-of-ways with parking on one side of the street, and then to serve the other units built on the other side of the street, they would have backyard parking coming in with a side street on the back side instead of trying to put driveways on the same street on both the uphill and downhill side. That's how they've kind of tried to address the 40-foot wide right-of-way with just parking on one side of the street, and then they would have a parking area on the back side of the lots. Do not have direct driveway access on the street. That's how they would actually provide the parking to those units.
Thank
you. Yeah.
Councilmember Mum.
Yeah, I think I maybe should have asked for an actual, one of our planners who has been processing this would have been helpful. I appreciate what James and Eldon are contributing, but I do believe my recollection is the old PUD ordinance also allows commercial at that time. Is that correct, James?
I don't recall. This decision only authorizes multifamily. The property is like 20 acres, I believe, and it was the hearing examiner approved it for 35 lots and up to 220 dwelling units. So I think it's a combination of 4-plexes, 6-plexes, 8-plexes, and then there may be one larger apartment building that was anticipated. So I don't think the hearing examiner's decision talks about commercial uses at all. I think it's all residential.
So this is an extension of the development agreement. It does not sustain all rights under the PUD then?
No, this is just an extension of the approval that the developer received back in 2005.
And are current roadway standards 27 feet or 30 feet?
Typically on a regular roadway, we like to have 36 as our ultimate, where you have 8 parking on each side and a 20-foot wide roadway. But when you're into the hillside, where again you have uphill, downhill lots on there, why we do have an allowance in our standards to drop it down to a 40-foot wide right-of-way with parking on one side. And they've come up with putting a road into the backyard area in there and parking off of that to provide that parking ability to those units that would be on the side that doesn't directly have driveway access.
And did we recirculate all these changes to important agencies like the fire department and sewer department to get feedback that this is all cool with them?
We certainly will be doing that in final design. I think they've seen some preliminary things on this over time, but not sure they've actually seen the final product here yet, nor have we. We'll still do final design as part of this final plat.
See, now you can, yeah, okay. Thank you, Eldon. You can see what the problem is here. We shouldn't really be dealing with this at this level. We've got lots of departments that should probably be weighing in on it, and maybe by the time the decision is made tonight, we can get someone from planning to kind of map out all the differences between now and then. But thank you for listening.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Councilman Wilkerson here. Just clarity for me. So originally, it was going to be private streets and utilities. Now it's going to be public streets and utilities. Who bears the cost of that? Since it's public, is that now on the city or is that on the developer, but maintenance will be our issue going forward?
Yes, the developer will actually pay for the construction of the public utilities and roads, and the city will be the maintenance responsibility for those facilities when it's all done.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mum.
I think possibly Louis Mueller may have joined us, and it might be helpful to hear from planning on this in terms of the differences, because that's what we were asking for.
Okay. Louis, are you available to weigh in?
Yeah, this, like James has said, this is an extension of the current plat, preliminary plat. If this is allowed to continue, it will have a full engineering and, once again, planning review before the plat can be finalized. So they're proposing public streets and public utilities at this point, and it would include a mix of the multifamily and allow the single family to continue. Based off the 2005 hearing examiner decision. Just allows that to continue forward with the modification of the new public street standard used.
Any questions for Louis? Councilmember Kinnear.
So Louis, it would actually be to the developer's advantage to do a public street, construct a public street and then turn it over as public, because they're not then required to do maintenance. It would be the responsibility of the city.
And that's how most of platting and development has occurred in the past 20 years. When we made in the PUD regulations, when we made the private streets have to follow the public street standards, that's one reason we haven't seen a lot of PUDs come in, because nobody's wanting to use the private standards anymore, because they have to develop it to the public standards.
And then a follow-up, it might be for James. I remember asking about the arterials that are feeding the development and whose responsibility it is to bring those up to a standard that can accommodate additional traffic that would be caused by a development such as that.
I'll jump in on that one. There again, the developers being required to actually upgrade those roadways, such as Valley Springs Road, to meet public standards to accommodate the additional traffic that they would throw on that existing roadway. So that is the developer's responsibility.
So, Eldon, just to be, if I understand, if they make it public streets, it's just going to be like all the other public streets in the city. So, I mean, they have to build them, but just like the city maintains all the other neighborhood streets, it's just going to be a neighborhood instead of a private community, I guess.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, it's on our agenda tonight, so we'll have further discussion. Let's move on to the legislative agenda. And that's Eric Polson. Hi, Eric. Welcome.
Thank you, Council President. Oh, it looks like I'm in your living room. I swear I'm not. I don't know how that happened. A couple preliminary remarks before I bring a few slides up, and I won't read through them, but it'll help us all follow along with the items on there. But the recommendations that we're taking up today come from council members on our legislative team, with absolutely tremendous support from the policy staff in particular. And I wanted to say thank you to Marlene Feist and Catherine Miller from City Administration. They started attending these meetings, I don't know, maybe 6-9 months ago. And it's just been a great contribution. Their communication and participation it's just vastly improved from where we've been in previous years. So special thanks to you two. We are embarking on a 6-day session in the year cycle, and technically bills that didn't pass last year are still alive and up for consideration. So on council's recommended list of priority items are carryovers from last year. And these that are being recommended to you are the priority items that are specific to Spokane and where the city is expected to take a lead on with the legislature. So just know this doesn't encompass everything that the legislative team is considering supporting. So I'm going to try to share my content without having a hiccup here. Bear with me. Is it up?
Yes.
Great. So the first item here, again, I won't read through it, but council members who are championing these issues, I just really encourage you to chime in. This is an item from previous year's agenda. I think it's been on our agenda for 2 years and something we've been trying to make headway on and haven't really been able to, primarily because there's a financial impact. We need a state appropriation, but State Rep Tim Ormsby, I guess, has offered to take this on and make it a priority of his. And so we feel like we have a good shot of getting this over the finish line this session. And Council President Beggs, I know this has been an issue you've championed. Do you want to chime in on this one?
I will just briefly. So the heart of this proposal is really revenue sharing from the state. So we have locally drug court, mental health court, DUI court, domestic violence court, all sorts of alternative courts, community courts that we have, but we don't have funding from the state for them. What this would do is if someone was going to go to prison, but a judge determined that they could be rehabilitated in the community safely, they would stay in the community under the supervision of the judge and probation, but the state would kick in money to our local governments to pay for it, and basically 50% of the cost of imprisoning them. So the state saves 50% of the incarceration costs, and then the local programs get the money to do the work. So it leaves decisions in the hands of judges, but it treats people who are treatable in the community under supervision. And the reason it's been on the calendar for a while is that it would be a sea change in how they do things at the state. But we have been talking with several senior leaders in the Senate and the House, and they're encouraging, but it just takes several years to do it. So this is just remaining on the agenda as a proposal and to continue progress on it. It's probably not going to happen this year either, but possibly the next year. But each year we get more engagement with leadership and the Department of Corrections. But essentially it's the local funding bill as opposed to a substantive model, because we're already doing all these things. It's just that we don't get any state money for them.
Great, thank you. The next item is something that's also carryover from last year's agenda, and it is an effort to improve public safety around parks in particular. The legislation we're contemplating would have us partnering with a few other cities in expanding the use of traffic safety cameras, and just curious if there's this is something that requires legislative authority, not something we can do without thumbs up from Olympia, so that's why this is a legislative item. Any comments on this from council?
Eric, I guess my question is, so the legislature needs to authorize, is it the expanded use? Because we have some of these already, correct? So is this just allowing you to have more of them? Is that what this does?
Correct. There's already we already have authority to use these around schools. It would expand that authority somewhat, and the big change for Spokane would be being able to use these around parks. And I know there's some reasons for that. The council members, Kinnear and Mum in particular, might want to speak to in terms of there's been sort of diminished ability to do law enforcement around some of our parks, and hoping to improve safety this way. Councilwoman Kinnear, I thought I saw your hand up, but I can't see everybody's on my.
I did have
my screen up.
Thank you. And you are correct. This is really important to not just to my district, but I'm hearing from others in District 3 and District 1 that people aren't driving safely around parks, especially when parks are being so used during COVID, and we're not seeing a reduction in the use of people walking to parks. So I see this as really helpful moving forward to create not just awareness, but enforcement. And we know that for now, our traffic unit has been absorbed into patrol, so we don't have that tool. And so I really would like to see this expand around parks, and hugely important. So thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
I can go ahead and jump in too, if I may, Eric. Another reason why this is so important is these dollars go toward traffic calming. And many of us in the city of Spokane use parks that are on arterials that have higher speeds. And we can put up speed signs, but as we know, not everybody pays attention to those speed signs. And there's other types of mechanisms of traffic calming, painted crosswalks, different types of signage, mobile feedback signs, all kinds of tools that we could be using to improve the safety around parks. Having a highly paid and highly trained officer stay maybe half a day with a radar gun is not going to have the long-lasting effect that these kinds of traffic calming measures would do. And the money for that is thin. So that's why we would hope to support having this around parks as well, that would create a dedicated funding source in order to permanently improve the walkability and bikeability and access to our parks and schools.
Great, thank you. A couple of issues here under the category of affordable housing. The first item is really more of a technical correction to legislation we've championed previously, and that Representative Ormsby deserves a lot of credit for getting over the finish line. But you know, essentially the existing law allows the city to collect revenue, TIF revenue, but not to actually use it for land acquisition and construction of affordable housing. So this won't be a new idea for the legislature. There's already a lot of support for it, but it makes a fix needed so that we can actually move forward with your priority of using TIF for affordable housing. The second item relates to land banking, which is different than land trusts. I'm getting up to speed on this, so pardon my lack of expertise, but essentially this is a concept that would help the city clear the titles for distressed properties, abandoned properties, neglected properties are an example, and get them back into housing stock. And this is something that council took up during a recent study session with a very interesting consultant's report. So definitely would encourage council members to chime in on that. But quick word about the final item on your screen here. This is an issue that Senator Billig, the Senate Majority Leader, is taking on behalf of the city, and would allow the Department of Transportation to take existing vacant property and partner with the city to use that for affordable housing. And the need for the legislation really stems from needing legislative authority so that the department can use lease proceeds to actually maintain and the property that would be leased for affordable housing. So very important issue involving some specific property along I-90 that I think you're all very familiar with, and we're making great headway on this. So, Councilman?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So on the second one about the land banking, I know there's some roles for both the treasurer and the auditor to play in that. And I don't know if their role has to do with kind of the state level or not, but if there's interest on their part, since we need to work with them, it would be good to have their kind of buy-in on the legislative side of this. And then the second point, or my second question, the WSDOT. So they're going to lease the property. So how are we talking, like 100-year leases? Is that going to be the idea, so that it will actually, you can keep the housing there for more or less permanently? Is that the concept that we're looking at?
It is, and I can't see
I'll jump in.
Wilkerson, but if you're there, you might want to speak to this. I know that you've been.
Thank you, Eric. So, yes,
Sorry.
Councilman Cathcart, it is for a long-term lease, working with Senator Billick to get WashDOT to release the land that they know they will not be using for the north-south freeway sooner than later. WashDOT has a tendency to want to hold on to that land forever and ever and ever, but if it can be released to the original purpose it was used for, i.e. housing, along the I-90 corridor or even the north-south corridor, that is what we're asking from the legislature. To release
And
it.
are there constitutional issues, and that's why the lease instead of sale?
Yes.
Oh.
It's because
Okay.
that money was purchased with gas tax proceeds, they can't sell it.
Okay, that helps.
Great. We have been having meetings with Spokane County and city administration staff on the land banking issue. It's a relatively new concept, and I would just caution I guess that's a question based on sort of the lack of common direction between the county and the city and what the actual need is for the land banking legislation. I think our lobbyist has advised us that there are housing groups and potential legislative allies who have shown some interest in this, but don't really know a lot about it. And so it feels like there's a lot of groundwork that we still need to lay to build the kind of support that our legislative priority items typically have. So I guess it's an open question about maybe for you, Council President, or any others who want to chime in about just where this lands on our list of priorities. And since we present this to legislators in a few weeks, just wanted to get any thinking you have about how you want to portray this in terms of the urgency that some of the other issues have that we've been working on for the past couple of years.
Well, for me, the urgency is, so this legislation we're talking about is really just nuts and bolts and gives the city the ability to get rid of liens that are on properties that come into the city's hands, whether it was from a drug forfeiture kind of issue or non-payment of utilities or however it gets in the city's hands. And it's based on what I think 30 other states have. So it's not really novel, but for whatever reason, Washington hasn't done it yet. So if we got it there, figured out, then there's all sorts of other implementation ideas of who would do it. Is it nonprofits? Is it the government? And kind of that. But figuring out how to get that basic infrastructure in the law would be helpful, I think, across the state, since we don't have it in the state. But it's a short session, so I never expect anything unless it's going to take 3 years. So, but I just think we should get going on it. And I have spoken with Senator Billick. He seemed favorable. I think what we'll hear is, yeah, sounds good. Let me know when you have 10 co-sponsors across the state and what your language is. But we have to start that process. So.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Eric, I would just add, I think, and I know that, there's probably a lot of educating that needs to go on this topic, but I think it's an important topic. And so raising it now, even if there's a little expectation that it's going to go anywhere in 2022, I think makes a lot of sense to at least begin that process of educating people and kind of putting this on folks' radar. So I think it, even though it does require probably a little bit heavier lift, I think it makes sense to include it just so that you can start those conversations.
Great. Eric, good feedback. Thank you.
Eric, this is Karen.
Sorry, I can't see you all on my screen with my shared content.
That's okay.
Please.
No, and I think it's definitely something that should be on our list. I don't think it should be on tier 1. Because when we put stuff on tier 1, and that's why we have these tiers, it's a signal to our paid lobbyists of how much effort to put behind it. And exactly what you said, the expectation is, who are your other 10 folks in the legislature that are behind it, and what's the specific language? We're not quite there yet. I think this is a tier 2. And I don't know if we need to make a formal change for that to be brought forward, but I just, from listening to everyone on Friday, and I was in attendance at the meeting, hearing all the discussion from folks, they felt like this is not ready to go, and we shouldn't necessarily put it on tier 1 if we're not quite ready to go. And I don't think our council's had an opportunity to really dig in and know the pieces that have our full support. So that's why I think tier 2 makes the most sense.
And I'm respectfully going to push back a little bit. The tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 differential is, in my mind, is not so much how urgent or important, it's whether or not we're going to lead or not. Tier 1 is our team is leading. Tier 2 is someone else is leading, we're strongly supporting. Tier 3, we're monitoring. So I guess that's, I think we could put in the caveat of, okay, this isn't our top of the list of our tier 1, but if our team isn't leading on it, I'm concerned that it won't get 10 sponsors by next.
Okay, so this is just my personal thing. I don't think we should lead on it because I'm not convinced this is the right thing to do. From what I've seen is land banks sound good, but they don't function well. And what they end up doing is tying up capital. And so the more I dig in on this, the more I'm not super excited about it. So that also weighs into my, I'm not ready to buy into it. And just because it has the tag of affordable housing, I don't want to do it just because of that. So I'm very hesitant as to the process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. A few months ago, I would not have thought that a new transport funding package was very viable, but some things have happened in the legislature recently that I think favorable towards potentially getting the new revenues. The chairman of the Senate Transportation Committee, Senator Steve Hobbs, was actually just sworn in today as Secretary of State, and there are 2 senators vying for that post, Marco Elias and Senator Saldana. And what we're hearing is that their sense of urgency to create a new stream of revenue for transportation, along with the governors, could make this more of a reality this coming session than folks were expecting. So feels like a positive development. The things that you put on your agenda here, we've supported previously, particularly speeding up construction of the Spokane corridor. I know that's a priority for many of you. And then highways and bridges in particular have been an issue for Spokane we want to move forward on, and there's obviously a lot of support just around the state. So feels more than it was last session.
Yeah, Eric. Eric, I'm wondering, so obviously we're getting a bunch of revenue from the federal government, or a bunch of funds from the federal government for infrastructure. So do you think that the focus is going to be on actually doing a new revenue package and raising more revenue, or do you think the focus will be on more like spending those dollars that we're getting passed down from the federal government?
Well, no crystal ball, but I would say the signals we're hearing are that it will be both. The new opportunities from federal infrastructure funding, but also looking at more state-specific funding streams that could be game changers for things specific to Washington State. So, transportation funding is a very complex process that often, I think the last gas tax increase took a decade of efforts to pass. So, you know, if I had to bet, I'd say, nope, it's going to take more time, but I just think the change with the transportation leader, the Senate has a lot of conferences happening that just weren't leading up to a few weeks ago when that appointment of Senator Hobbs was made. So I guess we're in wait and see. Okay. The last item
Hey, Eric.
to do with the capital budget. Oops.
Eric, it's Karen. I just have a really quick question on the transportation funding. Have there been discussions about funding for sidewalks?
Mm-hmm.
Could that be, I mean, is that something that could be used for sidewalks as well?
I know that it could be. I just don't have a sense of where in the pecking order of that lies. But I know that's been a priority of yours. And let me do some snooping around, and I'll get back to you with a better answer.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's certainly. The last item, capital projects. The city is just, the council's ledge team has done a great job bringing resources back to Spokane. These are the projects that have been identified in the R. Doesn't mean that this is a list of things, but again, projects that the council wanted to show leadership on and take lead on. Nations, I don't know, chime in on and take a minute to look through, but the first item relates to the criminal justice issue that we just talked about a few minutes ago. Hilliard Library and Carl Maxey Center are projects that we've supported previously. And then the last three items would impact Northeast Spokane, long-standing issues with the Spokane, with the Monroe Street Bridge, and a recent initiative, the last item, to escalate the city's efforts in helping people who are experiencing homelessness. Councilman Cathcart.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So I guess,
are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me? Sorry. So capital budget, very appreciative, obviously, to have the Minnehaha line item as well as the library line item there. I guess my one question, concern, and I brought this up to you the other day, is having these on the capital budget request list, does that then negate the ability or willingness, I guess, to use ARPA funds? So I had submitted these as a request for ARPA because I think these are investments that need to happen and need to happen soon. And so I think it's fine to ask the legislature for it, but I guess, is there some ability or some agreement somewhere that if the legislature decides not to pursue these as to fund, that we will in fact use ARPA dollars and not just let them die?
This is Brian. So by putting it on the legislative act,
well,
that doesn't take it off the ARPA.
Yeah, thank you.
And, we put in the proposal that we advanced a week ago on ARPA was play equipment in the parks in the lowest income census tracts. So, yeah, I don't see it as an exclusive thing. It's just that if we get the money from the legislature, then we don't need to use the ARPA. And I'm not saying, oh, let's wait and see what the legislature does. We're just pursuing both tracks at the same time.
And then my last question, the downtown intake referral center. I mean, that really sounds an awful lot like what the Envision Center was supposed to be. So is this going to replace the Envision Center once it's established? Because it feels like it would really be a duplication of services.
I'll speak to that. So no, the Envision Center is not serving homeless people particularly. It's people who are further along. But what it is intended to do is help us comply with Boise v. Martin, so that we actually, when people are blocking sidewalks and that, we actually have a place that we can say, no, we can go right here, you can get out of the weather, and you could go to sleep for a while if you want to, and we can get you into shelters. So it'd be a way to solve the impasse that we currently have downtown, which is we can't clear the sidewalks because of Boise v. Martin, and people aren't getting services. And I know Councilmember Stratton for a long time has imagined the, I forget what the name of that old hardware, the Jensen Bird building, doing something like that, working with the university. So it's a mechanism to break that impasse, but I don't see it as the Envision Center replacement, because it's really a different group of people. These people are on foot. Envision Center people have to get there by bus, and it seems to be a different subset of population. Councilmember Mum.
I just had a technical question. I really apologize. Hi there. I'm not quite familiar with this, but is Minnehaha Park 100% inside the city of Spokane?
I believe the park itself is. I think there's other attached land around it that's not in the city, that's part of kind of a regional effort to make a larger park. But I believe the actual park itself proper is in the city.
Yeah, the park is public, or in the city, but then there's like spots that are closer to Beacon Hill that are actually in the county, but they are owned by parks, I believe, still. But it's not open to the public right now. But they're working on that kind of what Michael was saying, like a regional approach to making that actually like a destination.
Sure. Yeah, I've heard some really great plans for that. I guess I'm just wondering if, and I think you're right. I think the Parks Department owns it, but I'm not sure it's actually inside our jurisdiction. I'd have to double check on that. Maybe it's inside our actual city limits, because just making that clear with a legislative ask, it may be more appropriate for the county to do that. So just putting that out there to make sure that all of the things that we'd be asking for would be within our city limits.
And if I could add on to that too, I've also, I think in my ARPA submission on that, had suggested that this could be an area where we would collaborate with the county potentially for those dollars as well. So maybe there's an opportunity, if nothing else, to lobby jointly. So.
Yeah, because the Parks Department in the Finance Committee at one time was saying that we shouldn't be adding expansion or dollars if it's not in the city limits. We should be working with community partners like the jurisdiction that it's in to fund those, because we end up maintaining them, even though it's not necessarily in our actual jurisdiction. So I just thought I'd put that out there. And I know the Parks Department, part of this was gifted to them too. So it's a little interesting situation. Thank you.
All right. So Eric, just to try to wrap this up, because we have more miles to go.
Council President,
this would come to us in a resolution format. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That I believe.
And I wasn't at the Friday meeting, so I guess our ledge work group would collaborate on what it looks like. And it sounds like, though, there's at least 2 council members that want want to do a legislative agenda. We just haven't finalized the actual words on it yet. But. Okay, let us move on. I have 3 things to talk about. I'm going to try to go relatively quickly so that we can hear about High Drive and Fire Department. So the first one is in your packet. There's a slightly amended bid contract. Mr. Piccolo from City Legal, after looking at what we signed a couple months ago, saw some language we need to clean up just on the termination part of the contract, just to clean it up, make it a little more clear. So being cautious, he's asked that we just sign a new one, just a very small change. And then the bigger change, although not significant, is we have a reauthorization of the bid ordinance that we have to do every time we update the contract, and it essentially just matches the new contract to the ordinance. It covers a couple other areas of work that the bid does, and also the Ratepayer Advisory Board makes it clear that they're the advisors, not the rate setters. City Council is the rate setter. And it opens up the voting a bit for the Ratepayer Advisory Board so that anyone can vote on it if they're a ratepayer, whether or not they're at the annual meeting or not, and that there potentially could be competing candidates instead of simply a slate recommended by the current Ratepayer Board. Any questions on those? Oh, and by the way, the ordinance was all negotiated with the bid administrators, DSP, and I believe Councilmember Kinnear and Councilmember Stratton and I are all on the same page on it, so I don't think it's controversial. Next, once a year when we do the budget, we look at the departments and divisions of the city and see if there's any adjustments that should be made. I originally had proposed and brought to the budget work group, and they approved 5 potential changes. One of those dropped off, having to do with the water department. The other 4 are, 1, establishing an Office of Civil Rights, which is currently not in our code. So that language is in there, although the administration and the Human Rights Commission and council are still going to discuss how best to structure it, who it would report to, essentially. That part's in the in this version. It reports to Steve McDonald in Community and Economic Development Services, but that could change. There's another one that updates the language for the Community Economic Development Services Division to make it clear that it focuses on local and homegrown businesses as well. And again, the administration has some language they want to propose, so consider the version that's in the packet is just a first draft. We're looking on that. And then there's a reform that happened in the fire department a few years ago, but didn't carry over to the police. I think before all of our time on council, the Condon administration, they did create, instead of a fire department and police department, they created a bunch of sub-departments as official departments, and the fire union went to court and got a ruling that that was illegal under the city charter. And so they fixed the fire side of it, but the police union hadn't gone, so the police side of it hadn't gotten fixed. So this removes 4 what I would call sub-departments and just wraps them into the police department. The way it would work, the people who are leading it would still be leading in their same positions. It's just that they would have civil service protection and not be exempt. And then the last one, which is probably the biggest change, a year and a half ago, we combined parking, code enforcement, and development services into one department. This proposal would divide the parking out of that, so there would just be 2 departments together. And again, the administration is going to come back to us with some suggestions of how all three of those could work better, either keeping it in the same or some changes to the language. But those are all the, again, the annual updates that are on the table along with the budget. So, Councilmember Kinnear.
You started to talk a little bit about this at your preamble, and could you go into a little bit more detail, because we're going to get questions about why this is council purview and not administration. So you talked to me about it when we were having a conversation at some point. Could you speak to the rest of the council about that?
You're on mute, Brian.
You're on mute.
Thanks. But you wish you had the mute button for me. But so the administration makes suggestions of how the administration should be structured, but it's in the city charter, the city council decides what the formal structure is. And there's a whole chapter 3 in our municipal code that the city council decides what the divisions are, what the departments are, how they should be configured, certainly collaborate with the administration on how to do that. But the way it's laid out in our, I believe in our code, is that we do that every year at this time, at budget time, to make sure that we align the budget. So it is in the council purview, and it's our responsibility under the charter to do. But we take, again, lots of feedback and collaboration from the administration on how to do that. So it's supposed to happen every year. During some of the years in the Condon administration, at the end, at least during my terms, they just didn't bring those things forward, and they used people who were interims for long periods of time. I think the relations with the council and the mayor had broken down. They just weren't following it. But this is what's supposed to happen every year, is you kind of look and see, how are things going? How do you want them to go? And these proposals just put all these ideas out on the table for that conversation, and then we work with administration and then see what we think as a council we want to do or not do. All right, anything more on that? All right, then I've got one more, and that is the update of the apprenticeship ordinance. So we had heard from the community that we were hitting the goal of 15% of apprentices on public works projects over 600,000, which was great, but we were not hitting the goal for individual crafts. And so what was tending to happen is that contractors were using lots of labor apprentices, and even though there were projects that had carpentry, ironwork, and a host of other kinds of trades, they weren't using them on it, even though we have state-approved county apprenticeship programs in Spokane County. And of course, the goal is to increase apprentices across all the trades so that we can train a new workforce to replace all the people who are retiring. And so that was one issue. And then the second issue was whether or not there were really any consequences or enforcement for companies that just disregarded the ordinance and just paid the penalty instead of using the apprentices. So I proposed some language earlier this year. We had one big stakeholder meeting of contractors, union and non-union, and apprenticeship program folks, community folks. We're having another one tomorrow. I've had smaller group meetings with each kind of interest group on it, and the current law, the way it is written in your packet, would say that if you're going to use more than 160 hours of a particular craft, you need to seek out apprentices for 15% of that. Now, if there's no apprentice program or there's none available, you don't have to use them. But if they are available for a program, then you do. Otherwise, you're subject to the same penalties in the system. The other thing it changes is that it allows the city, if there's a particular contractor that continues to be kind of a scofflaw on it, but happens to be the low bidder, the city can take that into account in the final award. And the third thing is it allows a waiver if the city council approves it. Under the current law, someone in the administration could approve it. Those are the three things that are, I would say, different. And again, depending on where you sit in the process, you have opinions on it. But the three concerns I've heard is not wanting to have a per craft, worries that if you allow the city to not pick the lowest bidder, even if they have a history of being unreliable, that could be a problem. And the third, changing it from the administration to the council to do the waivers. So we've gotten letters, hopefully you've gotten letters from people on that subject, and we're having another meeting tomorrow with everybody. Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I guess I have concerns, but I don't know that there's actually the labor available to meet all these numbers. And one of the biggest changes that was in here is kind of removing that flexibility from the administration to be able to provide a waiver and putting that in the council's hands, which it just seems to me like that's going to add a couple of weeks or longer to the process when, you know, you might be needing to get a contract done and the administration could simply waive the requirement when there's not apprentices available. So I really question kind of how this would work functionally by increasing this, if we even have the labor that could comply with this. And then also I think that you kind of put yourself in trouble when you're setting up a situation where you're not taking the lowest bidder. I think that could potentially create some pretty interesting ramifications for the city in terms of complaints or even litigation. But I know just taking that piece away from the administration could have a big impact there. And so I'd just be curious if Johnny, and I know he had sent a letter, but I'd just be curious if Johnny has any thoughts on kind of the impacts of that, if that's all right.
Yes, but before he does, I just want to untangle one piece. The waiver is for reasons other than not availability. If there is no one available, there's a process for the apprenticeship program to simply sign off on it right at the thing. So the waiver in the ordinance is for a bigger reason, like no, for some reason this project we're not going to do it. So it's not the lack of labor force. But Mr. Perkins, if you could be super brief so that we can get to your bigger fire issue.
Thank you, Council President, Councilmember Cathcart. We too have heard from a number of third-party organizations that do not support the ordinance in its current content, and certainly I'm looking forward to the discussion tomorrow. I think the Council President hit it very, very succinctly. There's a concern from the administration that it elevates supplemental bidder criteria over lower bids, so that's one concern. It puts the council, no matter who they are, in the role of approving the goal reductions or waivers. We think it should be an administrative function, no matter who the city administrator happens to be, he or she, that by doing it with council, that could potentially put a political element into it. And then just lastly, we think this establishes more of a punitive system rather than one that seeks collaboration with our local contracting community. So for those reasons and a few others in our memo, if you saw it, that we do oppose it in its current form. But in fairness, I do look forward to the discussion tomorrow to see where we can come together on some of these items. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Councilmember Wilkerson.
Thank you. So when I came on council, one of the first things I was asked about this compliance around the city contracting and meeting its obligations. First of all, really couldn't find any enforcement or someone who truly monitored that for the community. So I think it may need some work, but if we're going to create opportunities for the trades to get people into this field and don't provide the opportunity and they're just laborers, not just laborers, but laborers, the opportunity for more economic development in their own lives, I think we're missing the mark. So I think it's the intersection right now of where we're at in the skilled trades.
Thanks. Okay. I will go. Clint, I don't know how fast you can be on the high drive, 20 miles per hour, but the faster the better.
I can be real fast. Good afternoon, Council President, Council. So we've been asked to present on the high drive 20 mile an hour speed pilot. So the resolution was created in fall of 2020. Previous to that, there were certain parks that had, on the arterials, that had 20 mile an hour that was seasonal. Last year, the resolution was expanded to include some other parks and some other streets, and that was done in the fall. And it was a big expansion from the original project, and it was a pilot for 1 year that expired on November 1st. Out of that, we had committed to doing a speed study on high drive. We committed to doing a speed study. This year we did do a speed study on high drive. These are the results from that speed study. Basically, it's everything that what we read about the engineering data would say that would drive different compliance, so that moving from a 30 down to a 20 has decreased compliance. And basically the 85th percentile is right around 38 miles an hour for most of the high drive. Most council's aware of how the speed assessments are done. This information is provided in the information that I've provided for the briefing paper, as well as some proposals for the resolution. Basically, so we use two tools to confirm the 85th percentile, and then the U.S. limits to recommended posted speed. Out of that, the recommendation would be a 35 mile an hour speed on high drive from that. So as part of the study, we did put together some different resolutions as proposals. There's one for high drive that would change this speed limit to 35. There were two other resolutions. One was included, the other one is not. One resolution would be to go back to what it used to be with the seasonal roads, and the recommendation from staff would be to do that, as well as to leave the 20 mile an hour local access streets in that, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to change those back. Any questions?
Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, Clint. So the reason that you want to do within 5 miles an hour of the 85th percentile is a safety reason, correct? Is that because generally you might end up with more people being rear-ended or something like that, because people are slow. If you were slow into 20 while everybody else is still trying to go a higher speed.
Yeah, it creates behaviors that are not safe. There's lots of reasons for it. Val, you can chime in if you want to correct me there.
No, you hit the nail on the head. That's kind of exactly what happened when we put 20 miles per hour on there.
Okay. And have we looked at other areas where we permanently or year-round reduced it to 20 to see how they compare?
We've not been doing traffic counts for the last 2 years just because of how far off the counts are, but the unofficial counts that I've seen from the speed trailers would indicate that the speeds have increased around other areas as well. But we couldn't really collaborate those speeds because it's not calibrated and not as accurate as the tubes.
Okay.
Yeah. Councilmember Kinnear.
I know that the high drive piece is really controversial with that neighborhood, and it was 30 miles an hour. I think going up to 35 might be problematic. And in terms of if you post it at 35, we know people will then go over that speed, whatever the speed limit is, people go over it. And I don't know that 35 would be a safe speed given the number of pedestrians and bicyclists and people who use the bluff and have to cross over. There's no stop sign or light or crosswalk from Grand Avenue to 29th. There's a stop sign, and then from 29th to the freeway. So you've got this straight shot down the hill, and people really pick up speed. We are proposing to get cameras around parks and do traffic calming measures, asking the legislature for those, and yet we're now saying, let's take off those 20 mile an hour around our parks or go back to the original speeds around some of our parks. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I concur that 20 miles an hour on High Drive did not work. That was a failed experiment, and we need to do something differently. I think 35 might be going over, swinging the pendulum over the other way, and we may need to just go back to 30. And I'm only one vote on the council, so that's what I'm hearing.
Well, I would just confirm that we're not proposing to increase anything. That's what the speeds have been doing, Councilmember Kinnear. If you look at the information that's on the table there, the percent traveling at or below the posted speed has actually decreased, so only 1% of the people was driving 20 miles an hour. So we're not proposing to increase anything. That's actually the way that street has been operating. Just point that out.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. And as I said, I think the 20 miles an hour was a failed experiment, and we need to go back to something that's more reasonable.
Yeah, Councilmember, I think you could go back to either the original speed limits on that road or go, as Clint suggests, to 35. I think that the challenge is with speeds, signs are just one piece of it. So what they're seeing is the environment there, which is the trail is separated and up a curb. There's a large boulevard strip for much of the length of the area that we're talking about that separates the houses. And so that boulevard strip plus another street. So that's what the citizens are seeing and reacting that way. The park locations where we went from seasonal to year round, I think what we're missing as a result of that change is that we don't get the element of a change for the driver to notice. It just becomes part of the background noise, whereas every spring we were able to remind the driver that the school kids were out of school and might be running across the street to go to the splash pad or the playground equipment, whatever's in that particular park. So that's what we liked about the seasonal speed limits around those parks. And so what Clint's suggesting is that the local access roads around those parks be left at 20, but what we're talking about is a couple of frontages. So certainly something to think about. We could do speed studies in the spring on those areas if we wanted to take a look at that more closely. The other area that I hear a lot of complaints about is Bernard on the backside, basically, of the Japanese garden, that we also switched to 20 miles an hour, which is a surprise to people because they don't really see that as Manitou frontage. So that's another one to think about.
All right. Well, thank you, Clint. We'll get back to you on that. Appreciate the work of all your team. Okay, Paul and Josie. Special budget ordinance proposal for the fire department.
Thank you, Council President. Good afternoon, committee members. This item begins on PDF page 64 of your packet. This is the second of 2 year-end appropriation authority special budget ordinances. This SBO would provide up to $5 million in budget authority to the Fire EMS Fund to cover operational costs for the rest of the current fiscal year. It is recommended that the budget authority come from the General Fund's Contingency Reserve account and be transferred to the Fire EMS account. And I will turn it over to Tanya from here.
Hi, City Council. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I know this is somewhat of an unsettling SBO, And we certainly wish that we could have brought you a better SBO than this for authority. And the question has come up, and it was certainly something that we also questioned ourselves of, with a $5 million projected overage of the budget, could we have seen this sooner? So I want to give you just a little bit of the background and how this came to you today. And it really started with, if you look at the tables that are provided to you in the memo, and it gives you some of the background of the memo, we actually started seeing an increase in probably mid-September, and we report that over time every month through the F&A committee. We report that. But when we start seeing in September, I just want to remind the council, this was during the time of wildfire season. August and September are typically heavy months of wildfire season. So with COVID coupled with wildfire season, there's just the assumption that the overtime that we're starting to see pick up at that time is related to those wildfires. So we really didn't dive any deeper than that. We were just going off of our historical knowledge at that time. And then comes October. And as a reminder too, payroll is about 2 weeks behind. So we're not going to see this. We're always going to be a little bit behind the curve. But then October hit, and that's the real escalation when we saw overtime. And we started to look at this right after we put the budget in your hands the 1st of November. As soon as staff, the finance analyst staff were completed with the budget tasks at hand, we started projecting out for a year end and preparing for a year end. So our attention immediately turned towards that. So that first week of November is when we did year end projections. And it was at that time that we saw that there was about a good 3-month trend of this really picking up, and might have been attributed to something other than wildfire season. So we did start looking at leave reports. We started looking at a much deeper in-depth as to what might be causing the overtime. And then it was really November 11th that we alerted the administration, the mayor's office, the mayor specifically, as well as Chief Schaefer, that something else might be going on here in fire other than the wildfire season, which certainly added to that, as many of you know, with the SBO that came forward with mobilization. So that was coupled with this, and it just takes a little bit of investigation to start to unravel and pull that thread a little bit about what is going on. So that's kind of the background. I think we did alert the administration and Chief Schaefer as quickly as we could. We started looking at the details of what was going on. And then we've talked to the administration, and the mayor has made some other very strong recommendations regarding efforts to contain what we can and then investigate further so that we can help mitigate the financial bleed that we are experiencing at this time. So with that, I think Chief Schaefer is on here, as well as Mr. Perkins, so that we can also address any other questions that you might have, Council. But there is a lot more that is going to continue on this effort over the next several weeks and months.
And I believe Chief Schaefer has a summary of some of the things that he's been doing. Chief?
Yeah, if I could, just a couple points. Most of them are a result of fire staff working with the finance department over the last 2 weeks. One is one of the agenda items that you'll be seeing is a request to approve an overtime study with a consultant that was an RFP started probably back in July, I believe, for finance, when the council, specifically the finance committee, recognized the ongoing public safety overtime for both police and fire, and wanted to dive into that occurrence, and that was coupled along with, are we funding fire department and police department overtime adequately? That question always came up, and I think that was the purpose of that study. There's been a lot of progress made, and thank you very much, Tanya, for leading that effort. The second is our fire academy. We do have a current recruitment that is closed now, and we've got around 98 applicants for 20 positions. So we're going to start interviewing right after the holiday on into December, and then the fire academy will start in February. That will help with the vacancy, the current vacancies that we have, both as a result of COVID and people retiring, and also as a result of people leaving most recently because of the governor's mandate. And I did last week issue a cost containment directive to the organization as a whole through the chain of command to hold any non-emergency purchase of equipment, supplies, and limit overtime to emergencies only. So only positions on fire trucks are the positions that we're filling on overtime. And then my fourth that I wanted to mention was, we're asking ourselves, what can we do internally to avoid this from occurring again? And one of the items that came up from the collaboration with finance was the need to identify, and I think Councilmember Mumm was a pretty big part of this, as was Councilmember Kinnear, of creating a bucket essentially for these SBOs and for the state mobilizations and for grants. Instead of those considering our general fund budget, they're going to be separate, so they could be separately watched, and we'll have a better idea of the money coming in from state mobilizations or from project fires, as well as those federal grants that we get really often. My last one is just the commitment from the mayor's office that we have clear direction to ensure that our daily staffing is maintained, that there are no decreases in service, and that commitment has been made clear throughout the entire process. So I'd certainly be willing to answer any questions or...
Council President, if I could close just with a minute and 30 seconds. The mayor and the administration take this very seriously. We all have a strong fiduciary responsibility to ensure the taxpayers' dollars are used correctly, efficiently, and effective. Once this was brought to the attention of the mayor and myself, as Chief Schaefer had mentioned, he issued a cost containment directive. I also put out a memo that said all non-essential funding for the department needed to be suspended until such time as we understood what was going on. The mayor has also asked for a forensic audit as it relates to sick leave and leave time usage to see if there's any impact as it relates to staffing and overtime. That is commencing immediately with the goal of having something back in return within 4 weeks, no longer than 6, but we certainly want that sooner rather than later. 4 weeks is the goal on that forensic audit. It's also going to look at a number of other things in terms of how are we managing our internal controls with our budgets, just generally speaking, which leads to the second directive of the mayor to the chief financial officer to really start to look at what are our internal controls, how are we tightening our spending, what are we doing monthly to ensure all of our division directors and our department directors and managers fully understand their budget, not just the annual number, but what are their actuals, what are their dollars budgeted, what are they encumbered, what are they non-encumbered, how much is left in their account on a monthly basis. And so the mayor has given the directive to the chief financial officer to initiate that process to see how we can do better. And then finally, what I've asked for as the city administrator is a monthly summary of such, which will also show, again, what is it that we have encumbered, unencumbered, what is our budget versus our actual budget, not just citywide, but as it relates to each division and department, so we can get better visibility around what that financial picture looks like. So in fact, this situation does not ever occur again. Thank you.
Councilmember Kinnear and then Wilkerson.
Thank you. Just want everybody to recall that back in August, I was asking some serious questions about overtime. Councilmember Stratton and I met with firefighter that expressed some deep concern about a over $500,000 overtime cost that was for less than a month. And I brought that up at one of our committee meetings. I believe it was public safety. I was given no definitive answer of why that occurred or that anything would be done to keep that in check. And so, and Councilmember Stratton, correct me if I'm speaking here, that is my recollection. So here we are, and we're at, you say, around 5 million. I would like to know, not just around 5 million, I would like to know exactly what the cost is. If you need to come back to us for more, then you need to come back to us for more. If you're putting those protocols in place that Mr. Perkins just mentioned, you will know exactly what that amount is. And it's disappointing that a council member can express a concern and nothing is done about it. It's not answered and it goes unabated. So I'm deeply disappointed. I feel like I wasn't listened to, or Councilmember Stratton were not listened to at the time. And yes, I certainly expect there's going to be some changes in the future. Thank you.
Councilmember Wilkerson, and then
Thank you. So Councilmember Kinnear went down my road. The administration reached out on Friday. Thank you, administration. But it was like a sucker punch, the amount of money that was being requested in this SBO. So over the weekend, I had a little angst as to exactly how much do we need. We should know the amount that we are in deficit, and then a really good projection of what it'll take to get us through the end of the year. So I will be supporting the SBO, but I need to know the exact numbers that will be required to address this problem.
Councilmember Mumm.
So I'm going to be pretty practical about this. Those of you who've been around for the last 8 years know that I have been calling for this overtime investigation every year, because every year we have this problem for the last 8 years. We have built in to try to ameliorate this problem by requiring a quarterly report on uniformed overtime from both the fire and the police. I believe that reporting has been dropped off. We should be discussing this on a quarterly basis, because what continues to happen is at the end of the year, the hat comes out in hand asking us to balance the budget. The current budget is not something that was blown in October. They have been over budget every month since January, according to the table that was provided to us. We also asked for an adequate funding of our police and fire for overtime in multiple budgets, so we don't have to fix this later on. I think we under budget what overtime is actually necessary for professional firefighters and professional police officers. And yes, we have had some extreme instances in the last 2 years, but this is a problem has been going on, like I said, for 8 years. We did call for an overtime study. This was council's project. This was council's request for multiple years. Finally, we got it in the budget this last year. It has been on the table for over a year, and the administration decided to finally come up with a contract, which I think we have now approved to look into it, which I think is great. But we waited a year, and we probably lost several $1 million because of that hesitancy, saying, just so you know, folks, that overtime study is only $100,000. So the fact that it was delayed probably cost taxpayers millions of dollars. And finally, I don't think that we should look at contingency reserves to bail us out. I'm not even sure it's appropriate to do so according to our code. I think there are some other places that we need to look at first to try to resolve this financial crisis that has been placed upon us 3 weeks before the end of the budget discussion. And I look forward to working with the administration to solve this problem and work with my other council members and work with our council budget director to try to come up with some solutions to fix the problem. And I wish you all the best in the future, and I really hope this doesn't happen again to the city. Thank you.
Any other council members? All right, I'll just say briefly without repeating what's been said. I do think we have to figure out whether the contingency reserve is appropriate under our law, or we have to look at something else. Secondly, it seems like there's a bit of a disconnect between our daily staffing standards and how many staff we have. This has been kind of a systemic problem for a long time, and I don't think we've really said this is how many firefighters we need versus how many daily staff positions there are. And if we're down several dozen, we probably need to do academies more often. The other piece, though, I think the hardest piece to swallow is that we're just hearing about it now, and it's not clear to me which person has the position in the fire department that looks at budget to actual each month and gives the warning signals several months in advance of the end of the year so that you can do cost containment. That's the piece that I'm still murky on, is who knew that we were so far out of whack in our budget and somehow the message didn't come up to council or senior administration that something needs to be done. All these things that are being done now probably could have been done several months ago. And so that's a weakness in the system. I know I've talked to Mr. Perkins about having that person clearly identified in each division and department. Just they need to know the budget to actual, and if the trend is going in the wrong direction, that it needs to be addressed. So we're out of time, literally. We have to get off the television so that they can set up for the 3:30. So we will be adjourned, and we will see you next month. We have another meeting. I don't have it right in front of me, but it's not the last Monday of the month, I'll tell you that. It's earlier than that. Anyway, take care, everyone. We'll see some of you in a few minutes.